working on playing in tune is more complex than just trying to play in tune with your tuner, and there's so much at play that affects the perception of how our pitch is perceived. And when I started to research this topic, I found that I was no stranger to this idea, and intonation is often cited as one of the leading areas that needs improvement among wind band musicians, and I also discovered that tone and intonation combined are the two leading factors that differentiate the level of musician. But that doesn't explain the main point, which is what makes someone's intonation good no matter what level they're at, and what techniques are required to have good intonation, and what steps can I take to get better at my own personal intonation and also to play more in tune with other people. This should come as no surprise, but tone and intonation are linked and connected. In one study, listeners actually mistook a poor tone quality from a musician as bad intonation, and the same listeners rated bright sounds and bright tone as sharper in pitch and dark sounds and dark tone as flatter in pitch. And so tone is an important element that can help us play more in tune. This means that before bending and adjusting our pitch, maybe first we should check our tone. But what is tone? Resonance is the tendency of a cavity to reinforce sounds at specific frequencies or range of frequencies. And that cavity could be like your vocal tract if you're a vocalist, or for us musicians on wind instruments, it's our instrument, but then also maybe parts of our embouchure. All of those things create the cavity for resonance. And it's found that musicians with good resonance are usually a little bit louder because they're actually more efficient at converting breath energy into sound. And this is why it's often the goal to sing or play with a consistent resonance throughout the whole range, and this resonance provides the amplification necessary to have this really rich sound. And tone is actually a collection of frequencies. It's not just the one frequency you're trying to play, but it's the fundamental frequency, the lowest pitch as a part of your tone, and then stacked on top of that fundamental frequency are harmonic frequencies, and they're just in multiples at like octave, fifths, thirds that are stacked above your fundamental frequency. So, good resonance will help us get good intonation. And it's shown that through scientific experimentation that good resonance is completely vital and required to have good intonation. And also that a singer or a musician that their voice or their tone is rich in harmonics is going to have less variability in pitch. So if I have a really rich, awesome sound that's really resonant, it's going to be less detectable to the ear, the variances in pitch, which is awesome to know. So what exercises can we do globally, no matter what you do, to improve your tone? If you do have you're a singer or a wind instrumentalist, some quick breathing exercises probably do have some good value to make sure that we're creating good breath energy before we try to convert that breath energy into a resonant, awesome sound. So just a little bit of focus on our breathing exercises may help us have good resonance. The other thing we can do is long tones, no matter what you do, going through scales or really trying to tune intervals with long tones and focusing on keeping an even resonance is one thing we can do to just ensure that we have good resonance before we try to move it around. As we're tuning intervals and stuff, doing pitch bends and making sure that we're tuning intervals, but also ensuring that we have good resonance as we move up and down, is going to be really, really helpful in matching our oral cavity or for singing or playing, and our embouchure, and making sure that it is going into the horn properly to keep an even resonant sound. Another thing that can really help with this is to model your sound off of professional recordings and listen to how people that are professionals on your instrument or on voice do the thing, and then just model what they're doing. It's really kind of as easy as that. Just get it in your ear what good resonance sounds like, and then just try to mimic that sound, and that can be really, really helpful in trying to create good resonance. So now for the thing that we came here for, how do we play in tune? There's two types of intonation that I found. One is horizontal intonation, and there's also vertical intonation. Horizontal intonation is problems with like a melodic line or our own personal intonation between intervals. This could be practiced with sight singing, singing or playing melodies, mastering individual intervals through interval training, and some kind of different things like that that'll help you develop your personal musical ear. Vertical intonation is what I would think of as how harmonies come together within an ensemble. So being able to identify those harmonies and tune chords and be able to listen to the musicians around you is more vertical intonation. Of horizontal is musical line, and vertical is supposed to be all the pitches combined. So within horizontal intonation, it's often that the minor second and the major second are the two intervals that are really important to make sure that we're hearing properly, just because those are the intervals that help create chromatic scales, or any type of scale can be created with minor and major seconds. And when we're singing or playing a musical line, it's important to learn how the intervals are supposed to sound the first time you're trying to learn that line, before programming your brain with the wrong intervals into your musical muscle memory. One way that problems can occur is that people can have pitch problems because they're trying to produce the sound in a way that they can't play or sing the pitches accurately. So this is all comes back a little bit to the resonance topic. So if you're changing your resonance as you're trying to change pitch, it's going to be really hard to get the pitches to sound accurate and precise. And that could be something if there's like tension in your body, or something in like the oral cavity, or something in the pipeline of creating resonance shifts and is taken away from your ability to create a consistent pitch. So some exercises to improve horizontal intonation could be to really pay attention to a key and then tune all the intervals within a key. Creating muscle memory for the correct pitches within that key with good intonation. Doing some kind of slides and like tuning your ear by sliding between like an interval of root to a fifth or a fourth or minor third, major third, anything, sliding through it and making sure you're finding the exact right spot where that interval is supposed to be is going to help you be able to then apply that to music when you have to play or sing those intervals in music. Scales are going to be a great way to just kind of learn a ton of intervals at one time, but you really got to focus on the intonation of that scale and making sure that it is in tune with itself. One other exercise is actually called a pivot exercise. So you could do something where you start on your fundamental, say it's a C scale, and then you would go down a half step, up a half step, back to center, making sure that half step is in tune, then down a whole step, up a whole step, making sure your whole step is in tune, and you're really focusing on each individual interval and just how it relates to your main like tonic interval. Those exercises could be done on any voice or instrument, which I think is really nice to be able to use in order to work on your intonation. So with vertical intonation, it takes a little bit of a different approach. In this type of tuning, musicians are going to focus on tuning to other people's notes and other people's pitch. So you want to isolate harmonic intervals. So this could be the first ones that are the most important is going to be tuning octaves or unisons with people. Then fifths and thirds, that's like the main triads within music theory. And then focusing on things like sixths, fourths, seconds, sevenths, some added intervals in there. But getting those intervals to be in tune with other people harmonically, it helps you play more in tune with other people. Perhaps the primary difference between amateur musicians and professional musicians is that professionals are always listening and always adjusting to the sounds that are produced around them, aka vertical tuning. So how do we play in tune? When we're tuning with a band or tuning between multiple musicians, first we want to, if we have intonation problems, isolate the problem interval that is occurring between two or more musicians. We want to tune that interval. Some quick checks we could do is first make sure our tones are matching, because if our tones are way off of each other, if we're trying to match tone, then that's going to be perceived as a possible intonation problem. Then make sure that you're playing about the same volume as each other, because if one person's playing way louder than the other, that could be perceived as an intonation problem, and it's going to probably mess with some of the intonation that is perceived from the listener. And if both of those things are correct, that you have good tone and matching each other, and you're playing about the same volume, then getting the pitch to be in tune is step 3. So then after you get that going on, you'd stack in other parts. You could first maybe start with the octaves, then add your fifths and your thirds. And this is a pretty common practice within band or a lot of instrumental practices, is to start stacking things into the chord. But also really focusing on tone and the balance is going to be one of the things that does help intonation. Some other quick things you could do is you could sing the chord together, and that can help people hear what they're supposed to be doing, and then bringing that in tune. Playing the whole chord together, and then once you've done all of that, taking that tuning practice that you just did and then putting it back in context with the music to make sure that you can go to that in tune musical place when you're actually making music. It's going to be important. So one more note on dynamics is that if you're really forcing your tone, that can be one of the things that is pushing you out of tune. So if you're like really trying to I'm really playing and I'm going super hard, that could actually be poorly affecting your intonation, because your instrument, you're going past the equilibrium of resonance, where your instrument wants to be the most resonant and then the most even and most in tune. So one way that you can work on this with your band or any group of musicians really is you could work on things like chorales and really focusing on intervals, octaves, and fifths across the ensemble to make sure that everyone's matching properly. And then also focus on parts being sung in unison and making sure that they have good horizontal intonation. So not just vertically lining up with each other, but making sure that people that we're playing melodies in tune, and those intervals in the melody are correct, and then we can stack vertically on top of those good horizontal. So it's like step 1, horizontal intonation with individual musicians. Step 2, stack the awesome harmony through vertical intonation. So some of the key findings is that if your tone isn't resonant, it's going to be way harder to play in tune with people. So practicing your resonance and making your tone as rich as possible is going to be helpful if you can have that through your entire register of your voice or on your instrument. And then also with playing in tune with each other, making sure that your own horizontal intonation is pretty good before you try to go play with other people. It can really help when everyone's trying to stack vertically. If everyone comes in with horizontal intonation, it's going to be a lot easier to stack the vertical intonation together. You can just learn to sing your music in tune and associate the correct pitches and correct intervals with your music. And when you're working with vertical intonation, you want to first ensure that unisons and octaves are good with horizontal intonation, and then move on to making sure the vertical intonation is good. Then you can focus on things like thirds and fifths and other intervals within the chord. If a group of musicians has really good horizontal intonation and a really good awareness of vertical intonation, the group should be pretty good at being able to play more in tune. So what kind of physical tools can we use to play more in tune? My favorite is the Tonal Energy app. It's the one with the smiley face, and they also allow you to do just intonation. I won't go into that, but which really helps with when instrumentalists trying to play more in tune within each key. You could also use a strobe tuner, which will show you some of the harmonics that I talked about, or the overtones within your tone, to kind of just visually see what's going on in your tone, and maybe you can try to emphasize certain overtones and change your tone that way. Another one I like is called the snark tuner, and it's like actually a guitar tuner, but you can clamp it on to a lot of different instruments, and it'll just give you a quick reference for pitch, and it's just going to be a quick reference. It's not going to tell you as much as some other tuners, but it can be helpful just to make sure you're in the ballpark, making sure that you're close to what you're trying to do. Another tool is going to be drones. So if you play just one drone of a sound, and you can use that to help train your ear and train all these intervals that we're talking about. And then there's a lot of practices out there with backing tracks, and those are a combination of maybe drones with playing in time and a lot of other things that might be helpful if you're really into that. But a lot of this it's just my take on intonation. I hope this video can help you in your playing journey, in your intonation journey, and you can apply some of these concepts to your own singing or playing, or maybe even use them with your band and help your band play more in tune. And if you found any of this helpful, please share these concepts. And if you have any concepts that you want to add, please leave it in the comment section. I'd love to hear it and add it to my own collection of notes. That green little face on your tonal energy app might not be the only thing smiling, because if we can all play more in tune with each other, that's probably going to make us a little bit happier as a musician playing with other people.